Australia was a great tennis nation because it searched the whole country to find good tennis players, and that's how Billy Lee Long ended up coming down from Cairns to be in the Hopman tennis squad with Kenny Fletcher when Billy was 10 years old. And Billy was a champion athlete, and he remained so for the rest of his life. Billy was North Queensland squash champion. He was he was in the Hopman tennis squad. He came second in the Queensland 100-metre sprint, second in the Queensland 100-metre freestyle swim, Queensland beach sprint champion, and he was a good mate of Fletch, and therefore he was a friend of mine as well. And Billy would remember when he came down to Brisbane the trolley buses, which were another great thing we used to have in Brisbane for getting around.
So, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Peter Racy here for Frew YouTube channel. And I'm here this afternoon with Billy Lee Long, and we're about to hear a very fascinating story. 1948-ish, getting on a coal train, a 10-year-old kid in bare feet. Just amazing, and going to Milton. So, Billy, tell us that story. This is quite fascinating.
Yeah, well, Peter, I'm an inner-style boy, born and bred. A little sugar town, a sugar cane farming town, and my first tournament I played was in Innisfail, and my second tournament was in Cairns, and I played in the age tournament and won the 10 and under. I didn't have any idea what I was doing in actual fact.
You were following your dad's footsteps because he played tennis.
Yes, my dad was the champion of the district at that time. He had been for more than 15 years, and even though he wasn't a big fellow, he was very, very clever. Played very much like Pincho Segura style, angles and drop shots and rush the net. So I had that opportunity to watch him play, plus my brothers and sisters, and then I just tagged along like a
kid.
Yeah, keep out of trouble. But once again, the whole family played. A fellow named Arthur Little, who was the sales manager for Sladens at the time, and he was also the state selector for school kids. He saw me playing Cairns and said, "Hey, little fella, what's your name?" I said, "Billy." He said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Innisfail." Oh, he said, "I know your dad, because my dad had a sports store." He said, "Oh, how long have you been playing?" I said, "Oh, about 3 or 4 months." He said, "I'll talk to your dad." And then he went and saw Dad and said, "I'm going to sponsor your little boy. I'm going to give him 2 tennis rackets. I want you to send him down to the tennis tournament at Milton." So my mum said to me, "Look, here's your school port, here's your clothes, here's a basket of food."
And how old were you?
I was 10, just turned 10, and they gave me a £10 note, which I put in my back pocket, sat on it because I wasn't going to lose that, and my 2 new tennis rackets, which I wasn't going to lose under any circumstance. And my mum said, "Don't get off the train until it gets to the other end, and when you get there, your aunt will meet you." Well, I didn't know where the other end was, and I didn't know who my aunt was.
This is a coal train? Or?
In the old days, they were Puff and Billy coal train. So it took 3 days and 2 nights to get here, and I didn't get off the train, but when it did get to Roma Street, everybody was getting off, but I didn't know it was the end. And then finally there was only one person standing on the platform in the old Roma Street station, and I guess it had to be my aunt, so I waved a tennis racket to her, and she came and got me, and she said, "Oh, so you're a little Billy boy?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Okay, you're coming with me. We're going home." And we hopped on the tram in the old days, and they took us from Roma Street down to Adelaide Street, and then we changed at Adelaide Street to go to Kalinga. And Kalinga, I guess, is past Kedron that way. And so we got there, and then she said, "You remember to change when you can come back to Milton. Remember to change trains at Adelaide, trams at Adelaide Street." which I did do, and then I turned up at Milton, and in those days it was called a Courier Mail coaching squad, sponsored by Courier Mail, and the coaches were Gar Moon, Vince Kelly, Jack Pyle, Jack Grinstead, Ian Cowie, and one other was Mr. Hyde. He was a PE teacher, big, strong looking guy. And so they were the 6 coaches that we had. And in those days, we were on the grass at Milton, just beautiful. Imagine a little boy coming from Minnesota and seeing the centre court in those days was, and I think there was a big sign up there, Big Bill Edwards was the president in those days. And so we trained every day, and guys that I remember that were in their squad at that time were people like, well, I was 10. Kenny wasn't there. Kenny Fletcher wasn't there the first year, but a fellow named Teddy Curtis, who became the great squash player, #1 squash player in Queensland for many years later on. Jimmy Shepherd, who became quite a good tennis player, played for Legend Cup for Queensland, and ended up going overseas and coaching. Then there was a fellow named Gary Bolch, and Gary toured overseas later on. And in fact, later on, Gary, when I was looking for a tennis coach for Cairns, and we had the sports laws back in 1958, I got Gary to come and coach, and so he was there for 3 years. He followed a fellow by the name of Ashley Cooper, and before then there was Graham Gaydon, and it just goes on and on. All those old family names that I was talking about.
Just great history, and just before the dawn of the golden era with Rod Laver, Roy Emerson.
Oh yes, that's right. Well, see, Ian Eyre was our idol at that time. He was the first Queenslander to be in the Davis Cup, and so we watched him play an exhibition, and so I was born at a time when I can remember back, the generations of the 30s and 40s who were our tennis players in those times. And then, of course, there were many women at that time who became not great players, but they were the leading players of that time. And then along came, of course, Faye Muller, and then Daphne Sini. She became Daphne Van Cup. Yes. And then so there's another the families just go on and on and on. Yeah.
So just
So Milton to me, when I think for another 5 years, so I would have been the first little kid ever to come from North Queensland to such an opportunity. And so I played so I came down when I was 10, and then I came. In those days, school holidays were in August and at Christmas. So from 10 every year I came down twice a year by train, and then of course by the time I was 14, somehow they saw me play, and I was selected into the Hopman squad along with then first year once again. Kenny wasn't there in that year, but some little red-headed guy from Rockhampton was.
What's his name again?
Well, Rod Laven. He's Rod actually was born in August. He's 2 months older. I was born in October. So Rocket and Frankie Gorman worked for. They were 2 juniors worked for Dunlop.
And Frankie Gorman, he was the fellow that passed away, wasn't he?
He got killed in a car accident.
And he was meant to be a better tennis player than all of them put together, isn't it?
Well, he certainly had the flair and the ability. Whether he had the dedication of a Laver or an Emerson is another thing. One will never know.
That's right.
However, then there was Jimmy Shepherd, Teddy Curtis. By the time we were 16-year-olds, or 15-year-olds, we were all in the hockey squad, along with myself and a fellow named Mel Perry.
Just absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
And Billy, what we might do is just leave off. We'll go off camera and have a little bit of a discussion, and we'll come back in a second. And this is just amazing history.